For 24 years, I lived like an actress playing a character I hated, a normal version of myself that never truly existed. Hi everyone. My name is Alex Rivera. I'm 24 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm autistic. But this is not a story about limitations or tragedies. It's a story about discovering that being different can be the greatest superpower you never knew you had. Imagine living in a world where every sound is 3 times louder, every light is a car headlight shining directly into your eyes, and every conversation feels like a code you never learned to crack. Welcome to my world. A world that, for 24 years, I desperately tried to pretend wasn't mine. You know that feeling of being at a party where you don't know anyone, the music is too loud, and you have no idea how to act. Imagine feeling that every single day of your life. At family dinners, at school, at the grocery store, at home, always. I grew up believing there was something fundamentally broken about me. That everyone else had received a how to be human manual at birth except me. Why did everyone else know when to laugh at a joke, and I didn't? Why could others talk so easily, while I rehearsed every sentence in my head? Why did the cafeteria's noise feel like torture to me, but fun to others? So, I learned to act. I studied facial expressions in the mirror, as if they were math formulas. I memorized canned jokes to use in conversations. I practiced smiles that looked natural. I trained myself to make eye contact for exactly 3 seconds, not too much, not too little. I became a master at pretending to be someone else. Masking, that's what we call this performance. Pretending to be neurotypical when your brain works completely differently. It's like wearing a costume 24/7, even while you sleep. Because even in your dreams, you're expected to be normal. And the scariest part of masking. After a while, you forget who you really are beneath the mask. At the end of every day, I wasn't just tired, I was completely drained, as if I had run a mental marathon. I would collapse in my room, physically exhausted from pretending to be someone I wasn't. And the next day, the play began all over again. My parents always said I was just shy, or too sensitive. When I complained that the living room lights were too bright, I heard, "Stop being dramatic, Alex." When I couldn't stand the TV blaring with people talking at the same time, the response was, "You need to get used to the real world." When I needed specific routines to feel safe, they called me stubborn or inflexible. Home is supposed to be the place where you can relax, right? For me, home was the main stage where the play never ended. "Alex, stop tapping your fingers like that. It looks weird." "Alex, look me in the eyes when I talk to you." "Alex, smile, you look rude." Every natural movement of my body, every need of my brain, became a reason for correction. And you know what's most painful? When you spend so much time pretending to be someone else, you start to believe that who you really are has no value. That your needs are nonsense. That your feelings are overreactions. That you are fundamentally defective and need to be fixed. For 24 years, I lived believing that. Until the day everything changed. If any part of my story so far resonates with you, please subscribe to this channel. You'll want to follow the rest of this journey, because I promise it's worth it. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it. Sometimes, a story like mine can change someone's life. I was in my last year of college, studying library science, because, of course, the girl obsessed with books would choose that profession when I had to write a paper about neurodiversity for an educational psychology class. It was May 2023. I was 23 years old. And I thought it would just be another boring assignment to turn in. I started by researching ADHD, dyslexia, things everyone's already heard about. But then I stumbled upon an article about autism in adult women. And it was like someone had just switched on all the lights in my life at once. Difficulty with changes in routine. Check. Extreme sensitivity to sounds, lights, or textures. Big check. Obsessive interest in specific topics. I looked at my collection of 847 books organized first by genre, then by author, then by year of publication. Check. Difficulty maintaining friendships. I thought about all the years I spent alone at recess, reading. Tendency to mask autistic behaviors to fit in socially. My heart stopped. How did this article know about my daily performance? Autistic women are often diagnosed late because they learn to imitate social behaviors early on. It felt like I was reading my own biography. Every symptom, every trait described it was me. For the first time in my life, everything made sense. I stayed up all night reading about female autism. I learned there's a word for that alien-like feeling of trying to understand humans. Autistic alexithymia. I learned that tapping my fingers when I'm anxious has a name, stimming, and that it's my brain's natural way to self-regulate. I learned that my obsession with dystopian literature isn't weirdness, it's a typical special interest in autism. But the discovery that hit me hardest was about masking. Reading that other women had spent decades pretending to be neurotypical, exhausting themselves mentally every day, made me cry with both relief and rage. Relief, because I wasn't alone. Rage, because no one had ever told me there was another way to live. I remember the exact moment I decided to seek a diagnosis. I was sitting on the floor of my room at 4 a.m., surrounded by printed research articles, when I thought, what if I'm not just weird? What if there's a real explanation for how my mind works? But seeking a diagnosis was terrifying too. What if I wasn't autistic enough? What if I was too autistic? There's this strange fear of not fitting in either world, neurotypical or autistic. What if doctors said I was making it all up? It took me 3 months to build the courage to book an appointment. I used my part-time job insurance from Book People, the independent bookstore where I worked, so I wouldn't have to involve my parents. I knew if I told them, they'd say things like, "You can't use that as an excuse for everything," or, "But you seem so normal." My first appointment with Dr. Sarah Martinez, a specialist in adult autism, was one of the most intense experiences of my life. She asked me questions no one had ever asked before. How do you feel in crowded supermarkets? Do you struggle to know when a conversation is over? Do certain clothing textures physically bother you? For the first time, someone cared about my real experiences, not about how well I could pretend to be normal. I didn't have to mask during that conversation. I could finally talk about how fluorescent lights literally hurt my eyes. How I need to know in advance if plans are going to change. Otherwise, I panic. How I can read for 8 hours straight without noticing time passing. The evaluation process lasted 2 months. Endless questionnaire, cognitive tests, detailed interviews about my childhood. Dr. Martinez even asked to talk to my mom, who spent the entire hour describing how I had always been different, but in a way that sounded more like criticism than clinical observation. She was always so sensitive, my mom said. She used to throw fits about clothing tags. Never wanted to play with other kids. She'd spend hours organizing her books by color. We thought it was just a phase. A phase. 23 years of a phase. When the results day finally came, in August 2023, I was so nervous I couldn't eat breakfast. I sat in Dr. Martinez's office with trembling hands, bracing myself to hear I'd imagined everything. "Alex," she said, "you're on the autism spectrum. Level 1 support needs, previously called Asperger's syndrome." I broke down crying. Not from sadness, but from relief. A relief so deep it felt like I could finally breathe after holding my breath for 23 years. "This explains everything," I sobbed. "Everything makes sense now." Dr. Martinez smiled. "That's a common reaction. Many women diagnosed later in life feel exactly that. You've spent years blaming yourself for being different or difficult, when in reality, your brain simply functions in a neurodivergent way." I left her office with a 12-page report explaining how my mind works. For the first time in my life, I had a manual for my world. It wasn't a defect, it was a difference. It wasn't something to fix, it was something to understand and accommodate. But I had no idea about the storm I was about to face at home. I came home floating. I walked through the front door with the biggest smile of my life, holding my diagnosis like it was a diploma. My parents were in the living room, my dad, Carlos, watching soccer, my mom, Susan, scrolling on her phone. "Dad, Mom, I have something amazing to tell you." My dad lowered the TV volume. "What is it, Mia?" I found out why I've always felt different. Why certain things are so hard for me. I'm autistic. The silence that followed was deafening. My dad looked at my mom. My mom looked at me like I had just told her I was from Mars. "What do you mean autistic, Alex?" my mom asked slowly. "You don't look autistic." "It's because of stereotypes, Mom. But autism in women looks different. That's why it took me so long to figure it out. Look." I started showing her the report. "Here, it explains sensory sensitivity. That's why I hate loud noises. And here about—" "Alex." My dad's voice cut me off. "You can't use this as an excuse for everything." I felt my smile disappear. "Excuse? It's an official medical diagnosis. Everyone has their quirks, Mia. Everyone has things they don't like. That doesn't mean you have some problem. But I don't have a problem, Dad. I have a neurological condition that—" "Alex," my mom interrupted, "you've always just been sensitive. You don't need a label for that. You're smart, you work, you study. Autistic people can't do those things." And that's when I realized they weren't happy I'd found answers. They were afraid. Afraid the diagnosis would change how they saw me. Afraid it meant they'd failed as parents. Afraid I wasn't the normal daughter they'd tried so hard to raise. "You don't understand," I tried to explain. "This doesn't change who I am. It just explains why I'm like this. Why I need routines. Why loud noises leave me physically and mentally exhausted. Why enough, Alex." My dad stood up. "You're fine. You've always been fine. You don't need these crazy ideas in your head." Crazy ideas. My official medical diagnosis was crazy ideas. I went upstairs to my room and cried myself to sleep. Not from relief this time. From a deep pain I didn't even know existed. I had finally found my true identity, and the people I loved most in the world completely rejected it. But that was just the first battle in a war one didn't yet know I'd have to fight. In the months that followed my diagnosis, our house turned into a silent battlefield. Every day brought a new conflict about who I really was versus who my parents wanted me to be. The first big fight happened one morning in September. I was having breakfast, the same thing as always. Toast with peanut butter. Banana slices cut into perfect circles. Coffee with exactly 2 spoons of sugar when my mom said, "Alex, you need to stop with these food quirks. Mix it up a little." "They're not quirks, Mom. They're routines that help me start the day in balance." my autistic brain needs. Here you go again, with this autism story. My dad exploded from across the table. You've eaten the same breakfast since you were 12, long before this discovery. Exactly, because I've always been autistic. You just never realized it. Alex, sweetheart, my mom sighed. Everyone has preferences. That doesn't mean you have a disorder. Disorder. Every time they talked about my autism, they used words like disorder, problem, condition, as if it were a disease I had caught, not a different way of existing in the world. It's not a disorder, Mom. It's neurodiversity. My brain processes information differently. Like how left-handed people write differently than right-handed people. It's difference, not defect. My dad made the face he always made when he thought I was being dramatic. Alex, stop complicating things. You're a normal girl who's making up problems. Normal. That word became a slap in the face every time they used it. As if normal were the supreme goal of life. As if being different was a moral failure. The arguments escalated. When I started asking for basic accommodations at home, simple things that would make my life infinitely better, but that my parents saw as whims. Dad, can you turn down the TV? The volume hurts me physically. Alex, stop being dramatic. It's just noise. Mom, can you warn me before changing plans? When you decide last minute to go out and expect me to join, I panic. You need to learn to be more spontaneous, sweetheart. Life isn't always predictable. Can I wear my headphones during dinner? The TV plus your conversation overloads me. That's rude, Alex. Families eat and talk together. Every request became a battle. Every attempt to explain how my brain worked became an excuse. Every real need became nonsense. But the worst part was when they started using my diagnosis against me. Whenever I disagreed, whenever I expressed an opinion, I would hear, "That's just the autism talking." As if my opinions, my feelings, my thoughts weren't real because of the way my brain worked. Dad, I think you're being unfair to me. That's the autism talking, Alex. Autistic people don't understand social interactions well. Mom, I didn't like how you spoke to me. Sweetheart, you know you struggle to interpret tone of voice because of autism. It became the perfect way to invalidate me completely. Anything I said could be dismissed as a symptom, not the legitimate opinion of an adult woman. Meanwhile, at work at Book People, I was discovering a completely different version of myself. Maria Santos, my manager, was the first person to see my autism as an advantage, not a problem. When I told her about my diagnosis, she smiled and said, "Ah, that explains why you're so good at what you do." What do you mean? Alex, you remember exactly where every one of the 15,000 books in this store is. You notice sales patterns I'd never catch. You match customers with perfect books by instinct. Those are incredible skills. For the first time in my life, someone was telling me that my different brain was a superpower, not a defect. Maria was also the first person to offer accommodations without me having to fight for them. Want to wear headphones while you work? No problem. Prefer I turn off some lights? Sure. Need a quiet space to recover when you're overwhelmed? There's a room in the back just for you. Jamie and Robert, my coworkers, taught me there was a whole community of neurodivergent people living full, authentic lives. Jamie is non-binary and has ADHD. Robert is gay and has dyslexia. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who knew what it meant to be different in a world built for the normal. Alex, Jamie told me one afternoon while we shelved new books, "Have you ever been to an autistic community event here in Austin?" There are events. Girl, there's a whole community. Support groups, social meetups, special interest gatherings. You need to meet your tribe. My tribe. I had never thought of it that way. I had always felt like a person alone against the world. The idea that there were others like me, living right here in Austin, was a revelation. But when I came home excited to share this discovery, the reaction was predictable. Dad, Mom, I found out there's an autistic community here in Austin. I'm going to a meet on Saturday. My dad stopped watching TV. Alex, you don't need that. What do you mean, I don't need it? You don't need to surround yourself with people with problems. You're fine. You've got work, college, family. Why go looking for trouble? It's not trouble, Dad. They're people like me. People who'd understand me. Alex, my mom sighed. You need to learn how to live with normal people. You can't just hide in your bubble of special people. Special people. As if it were an insult. Why are you so afraid of me, meeting people who understand me? We're not afraid, Mia. We're concerned. Those people will put ideas in your head. They'll make you feel even more different than you already do. And that's when I understood. They weren't afraid of me finding my community. They were afraid that, by finding people who accepted me as I was, I would stop trying to be who they wanted me to be. The tension at home reached a breaking point when I stopped masking altogether. I decided that if they couldn't accept my diagnosis, at least they would see who I really was without the performance. I stopped forcing eye contact. I started stimming, freely tapping my fingers when anxious, rocking when happy. I spoke directly about my feelings, without sugarcoating, to avoid offending. I asked people to repeat instructions when I didn't understand the first time, instead of pretending I did. And my parents hated it. Alex, stop that weird finger tapping. Alex, look at me when I'm talking to you. Alex, you're being rude. That's not how we raised you. Every natural behavior became a target for correction. It was as if they preferred the exhausted, fake version of me over the real, authentic one. The breaking point came in November, during Thanksgiving. The whole extended family was at our house. Uncles, cousins, grandparents, deafening noise, bright lights, strong food smells, overlapping conversations. A complete sensory nightmare. After 2 hours of trying to endure it, I had a full sensory meltdown. It started with that familiar feeling of my brain being attacked from all sides. Sounds became distorted, lights physically hurt my eyes, my skin felt like it was on fire. I tried to escape to my room to recover, but my dad intercepted me in the hallway. Where are you going? Family's here. Dad, I need a few minutes. I'm overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. Alex, stop this. Get back in there and be sociable. Please, Dad. Just a few minutes of silence. I'll come back after. No, you're going back now. Stop using autism as an excuse to be antisocial. And that's when I exploded. All the months of frustration, invalidation, and denial came out at once. I'm not using it as an excuse. I screamed in the hallway, probably loud enough for the entire house to hear. I'm trying to survive. Don't you understand that my brain works differently? That I need different things to be okay? All the conversation in the living room stopped. I felt every eye on me, judging me, seeing me as the family's problem. My dad's face turned red with anger. That's enough, Alex. Stop this drama right now and go back in there and be a normal daughter. Normal. Always, that cursed word. I'm not normal. I shouted back. I'm autistic. And you would rather have a fake unhappy daughter than a real authentic one. I ran to my room and locked the door. I heard my dad telling the family I was going through a difficult phase, and that they didn't know what to do with me anymore. Sitting on my floor, crying and shaking from sensory overload, I realized I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't keep being treated as defective for being who I was. I couldn't keep having my basic needs denied. I couldn't keep being invalidated every single day of my life. For the first time, the word independence crossed my mind not as a distant dream, but as an urgent necessity. But could I really do it? Could a 24-year-old autistic woman who had always depended on her parents for everything survive on her own in the world? The answer to that question would change my life forever. December 2023. 3 weeks after the Thanksgiving explosion. I was sitting in a room at the Hyde Park Neighborhood Community Center in Austin, surrounded by 12 people who completely changed my perspective on what it means to be autistic. It was my first meeting with the Autistic Adult Support Group. Jamie from work had given me the address and insisted, "Alex, you need to meet your tribe." When I walked into that room and saw people stimming, freely, some rocking, others fiddling with fidget toys, one person tapping their fingers to the rhythm of an imaginary song, I thought, I'm home. For the first time in my life, I was normal. They were normal. We were normal together. The facilitator, Dr. Lisa Chen, is also autistic. She opened the session by saying, "For those of you here for the first time, this is a safe space where you don't need to mask. You can stim. You can speak directly. You can be exactly who you are. Be exactly who you are." When was the last time anyone had given me that permission? During the introductions, I heard stories that could have been chapters from my own life. Sarah, 35, diagnosed at 30, after years of feeling like an alien. Marcus, 28, a software engineer, living on his own for 5 years. Jennifer, 42, mother of 2, discovered she was autistic when her oldest son was being evaluated. But it was Maya's story, at 26, that struck me the most. She had left her parents' house at 24, after years of conflict about her autistic identity. "My parents couldn't accept my diagnosis," she said. "For them, I was making up problems or using it as an excuse." It got to a point where I realized, either I leave home and discover who I really am, or I stay and die a little every day pretending to be someone else. Every word of hers echoed in my chest. It was exactly how I felt. And how was it, moving out? I asked, my voice trembling. Maya smiled, terrifying and liberating at the same time. For the first time, I got to create my own version of normal. Eating the same thing every day because I want to. Organizing my home the way that makes sense for my brain. Wearing headphones whenever I need to. Living unmasked. Living unmasked. The idea was so tempting it almost hurt. After the meeting, Maya pulled me aside to talk privately. "I saw your face when I talked about moving out. Are you considering it?" "I don't know if I could," I admitted. "I've never lived alone. I don't know if I have enough skills. What if I can't handle independence?" "Alex," Maya laughed gently, "you work, you study, you have relationships. You have more skills than you realize. The difference is, when you live on your own, you use those skills in ways that work for your brain, not the way other people think you should." She gave me the numbers of some people in the autistic community who rented rooms, and links to Facebook groups where autistic people shared independent living tips. Think about it carefully, but remember, you deserve to live authentically. That night, I went home with a strange feeling in my chest. Hope, mixed with terror. For the first time, independence didn't feel impossibly, felt necessary. But the universe decided to speed things up. In the second week of December, my parents found out about the support group. I had left a paper with the address of the next meeting in my bag, and my mother accidentally saw it while organizing my things. "Alex, what's this about a support group?" she asked during dinner, holding the paper like it was evidence of a crime. "It's a group where autistic people meet to talk and support each other." I knew it. My dad slammed his fist on the table. "I knew those people would put ideas in your head." "What ideas, Dad?" "Ideas that you're different. That you need special treatment. That you have some kind of problem." "I am different, Dad. And I don't need special treatment. I need respect for my needs." My mother sighed dramatically. "Alex, honey, you can't surround yourself with people who have problems. That will only make your situation worse." "My situation? What situation, Mom?" "This obsession with autism. You were getting better, going back to being our old Alex again, and now you're worse than ever." Our old Alex. The masked, exhausted, unhappy version they preferred. I'm not worse. I'm being myself for the first time in my life. "And if you keep going to that group," my dad said slowly, like threatening a small child, "we'll have to take more drastic measures." "What measures?" "Intensive therapy. Maybe even institutionalization to treat this." Fixation. The world stopped. They were threatening to institutionalize me for being autistic. For finally having found my identity and my community. That night, lying in bed, I realized I had reached the point of no return. Either I left home and discovered who I really was, or I stayed and let them slowly destroy me. I started making plans in secret. I searched for cheap apartments in Austin, calculated my expenses, talked to Maria about increasing my hours at the bookstore. For 2 weeks, I lived a double life. Obedient daughter by day, escape planner by night. The day of my final decision was December 20th. I came home from work to find my parents in the living room with a pile of brochures on the coffee table. "We need to talk, Alex," my mother said in that voice she used when she thought she was being patient. I looked at the brochures: rehabilitation centers, clinics for intensive behavioral disorder treatment, voluntary hospitalization for emotional dependency and obsessive fixations. "Are you serious, Alex?" My father leaned forward. "This has gotten out of our control. You can't function normally anymore. You're obsessed with this autism thing. You can't have a single conversation without bringing it up. Because it's who I am, Dad." "No, Alex. It's what you're choosing to be. And we're trying to help you make better choices." Choosing to be autistic. As if it were a conscious decision. "Look at these places." My mother picked up a brochure. Holistic treatment for young adults with adaptation difficulties. They teach appropriate social skills, break problematic behavior patterns. Problematic behavior patterns. I exploded. "You're talking about my autistic traits." "Alex, lower your voice," my father ordered. "We're trying to have a civilized conversation. There's nothing civilized about wanting to institutionalize me for being who I am. We love you, honey," my mother tried to calm me. "We want you to be happy. But you can't be happy living in this fantasy that you're different." Fantasy. My official medical diagnosis was a fantasy. "If you really loved me," I said, slowly, trying to control my voice, "you'd accept who I am. Not try to turn me into someone you prefer." "Alex," my father stood up, "you're going to choose. Either stop this rebellion and go back to being our normal daughter, or we'll have to take measures to help you." And that was the moment I made the bravest decision of my life. I've already chosen. I went up to my room and started packing, hands shaking, heart racing, but determined. I called Maya. "Maya, it's Alex. You said you know people who rent rooms to autistic folks." "Alex, of course. Did something happen?" "My parents want to institutionalize me." I need to leave home today. Today, Alex, are you sure? I looked out my bedroom window, at the suburban street where I grew up. The identical houses, the suffocating predictability of the life that awaited me if I stayed. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Maya connected me with James, a 30-year-old autistic man who rents rooms in a house in East Austin. He said he had a room available immediately, and that the house was sensory-friendly, soft lighting, calm environment, clear rules about noise. At 10 p.m., after my parents went to sleep, I put 2 backpacks and a suitcase in my car. Essential clothes, my favorite books, important documents, my savings from 2 years working at Book People. I left a letter in the kitchen. Mom and Dad, I'm not running away. I'm growing up. You gave me life, education, and love the way you knew how. Now I need to discover who I am when I'm not pretending to be someone else. If one day you can accept me as I really am autistic, and proud of it, to know where to find me. With love and hope, Alex. I drove through the empty streets of Austin, crying, shaking, but feeling something I had never felt before. Freedom. I arrived at James's house at 11:30 p.m. He greeted me in pajamas, helped me carry my things, showed me the room small but cozy, with a window overlooking a quiet garden, and said, "Welcome to your new home." For the first time in 24 years, I lay in a bed where I could be completely myself. The first days were an emotional roller coaster, pure terror mixed with uncontrollable euphoria. I did it, I really left home. I was living on my own. But also, oh my God, now what? How will I cook? How will I pay all the bills? What if my parents were right and I really can't handle it on my own? James, my new housemate, was essential in those first days. He understood exactly what I was going through, because he'd lived it himself 5 years earlier. The first month is the hardest, he told me as we had coffee in the house's quiet kitchen. Your autistic brain will try to recreate all your family routines, but now you need to create new routines that work for you. And that's exactly what it was. I had to learn to cook. I discovered I'm good at following exact recipes, but terrible at improvising. I had to learn to manage money. My obsession with organization became a superpower for budgeting. I had to learn to care for a house. Rigid cleaning routines fit perfectly with my autistic brain. But the most amazing discovery was being able to live unmasked. I wake up at my natural time, 6:30 a.m., every day. No alarm. I eat the same breakfast oatmeal with banana and honey because I like it, not because someone told me to vary it. I organize my books by color in my room because it makes sense to me. I wear headphones inside the house whenever I want. I stim freely when I'm happy or anxious. I speak directly about my feelings without softening them. It's like I can finally breathe after 24 years of holding my breath. Of course, my parents tried to bring me back. Daily phone calls during the first week, alternating between pleas and threats. Alex, come home. You can't handle this on your own. Alex, stop this childish rebellion. Alex, we're worried about you. But with each passing day, I became more confident that I had made the right decision. I was paying my bills. I was working well at the bookstore, even better, because I no longer arrived exhausted from performing at home. I was making friends in the autistic community. I was building an authentic life. Maria at Book People was proud when I told her I had moved out. Alex, you're glowing. I've never seen you this confident. And it was true. For the first time in my life, I liked the person I saw in the mirror. Not a masked, performative version, but myself. Alex Rivera, 24 years old, autistic, independent, and proud of who she is. 3 months after moving out, I received an unexpected message. It was from my cousin Carmen, Uncle Miguel's daughter. "Alex, I heard from my parents that you moved out. I wanted to tell you something. I think I might be autistic too. Your posts on Facebook about your journey made me recognize things in myself. You inspired me to seek an evaluation. Thank you for having the courage to be yourself." At that moment, sitting in my little room in East Austin, reading Carmen's message, I understood something fundamental. My journey wasn't just about me. It was about all the autistic people still hiding, still pretending to be someone else, still believing they are defective. I started sharing my experience more openly. I spoke about autism at the support group, wrote honest posts on Facebook, talked to customers at the bookstore who showed curiosity about neurodiversity, and I discovered something incredible. When you live authentically, you give permission for others to do the same. 6 months after moving out, I finally got the call I had been waiting for. It was my mom. "Alex, it's your mom." "Hi, Mom. Can you talk for a few minutes?" "Of course." A long silence. Then, I've been reading about autism, especially autism in women. My heart raced. And I think maybe you were right. About everything. For the first time in months, I cried. Not from sadness or anger, from relief. Carmen told us she's also seeking a diagnosis. And your cousin Alina said she's always identified with you. And I started to think. Maybe the problem wasn't you being different. Maybe it was us not understanding that different doesn't mean defective. We talked for 2 hours. My mom apologized for not validating me. She asked me to explain how my brain works. She asked if she could start learning about sensory accommodations. It wasn't immediate reconciliation. There was still much work to do. Many difficult conversations ahead. My dad was still resistant. But it was a beginning. Today, 1 year after receiving my diagnosis, and 8 months after moving out of my parents' house, I'm sitting in my favorite corner of Book People, writing this story for you. I'm wearing my most comfortable hoodie, the one with the perfect texture that soothes my sensitive skin. My headphones rest around my neck, ready to use if the environment becomes too overwhelming. My fingers tap a soft rhythm on the table, my favorite stim, when I'm focused and happy. I am Alex Rivera, 24 years old, autistic, and for the first time in my life, proud of who I am. I won't lie to you. Living authentically isn't always easy. I still have days of sensory overload. I still need more time to process changes than neurotypical people. I still struggle with social anxiety when I'm forced to mask in formal situations. But the difference now is that I understand why these things happen. I know I'm not broken, I'm different. I know my needs are valid. I know I deserve accommodations, not pity. I know my autistic brain is capable of incredible things when it's allowed to work the way it was designed to. My mind works like a vast library, where every piece of information has its specific place. I see patterns where others see chaos. I feel emotions with an intensity that can be overwhelming, but that also allows me to create deep connections with people and stories. I have interests that fascinate me completely, and make me an expert in the things I love. At the bookstore, I've become the person everyone turns to when they want perfect recommendation. I can look at a customer for 2 minutes, ask 3 specific questions, and point them to the exact book that will change their life. That's my autistic superpower in action. At home, I've built routines that nurture my soul instead of oppressing me. I wake up at the same time every day because my body naturally works that way. I eat foods that give me energy instead of forcing stressful variety. I organize my space in ways that make sense for my visual spatial brain. In my autistic community, I've found friends who understand me without needing long explanations. I can talk about my special interest in dystopian literature for hours without anyone getting bored. I can stim freely during conversations without being judged. I can be direct about my feelings without being called rude. But maybe the most important discovery has been this. When you stop spending energy pretending to be someone else, you free up energy for incredible things. I started writing book reviews for the Book People blog. My unique perspective on narratives and characters brought a new dimension to the analysis. Maria promoted me to literary events coordinator because she saw that my attention to detail and organizational skills create perfect experiences for authors and readers. I've become an informal mentor to other autistic people who are discovering their identity. Carmen, my cousin, received her official diagnosis 3 months ago and calls me every week to talk about her journey. Alina is beginning her evaluation process. 2 coworkers from other places reached out to me after seeing my posts about autism. It's amazing how living authentically creates ripple effects. Each person who embraces their autistic identity inspires another to seek answers. Every story shared validates someone else who is still hiding. My relationship with my parents is still a work in progress. My mom has made genuine efforts to understand my autism. She's bought books, watched documentaries, even came with me to a support group meeting. My dad is slower to change, but at least he stopped using my diagnosis against me. We're learning how to relate to each other differently. They're learning that loving me means accepting me as I am, not trying to turn me into who they think I should be. I'm learning that sometimes people need time to dismantle lifelong prejudices. They still live just 15 minutes away, but now our relationship is a choice, not an obligation. When we meet, it's because we want to be together, not because anyone is being forced. And that makes all the difference. If you've made it this far into my story, chances are something in it resonated with you. Maybe you're autistic and discovering your identity. Maybe you're a parent trying to understand your neurodivergent child. Maybe you're simply someone who wants to better understand what it's like to live with a different brain. For those who haven't yet discovered they're autistic, but something in my story echoes within you, seek information. Read about autism in women and non-binary people. Talk to specialized professionals. Connect with autistic communities online. If you feel like an alien on this planet, maybe you're not the strange one. Maybe you just haven't found the manual to your world yet. For parents of autistic children, your kids don't need to be fixed. They need to be understood. Don't force normality, cultivate authenticity. It's not about being the same as others, it's about being the best version of who they truly are. Real love doesn't try to change the person loved. It accepts and celebrates them. For autistic people who are struggling, you are not broken. You are not defective. You are different, and this world needs different. Find your tribe. Find your place. Find your pride. You deserve happiness, just as you are. And for everyone who has listened to my story, thank you for letting me share my world with you. I hope that, in some way, my journey of self-discovery inspires you to embrace your own differences, whatever they may be. Autism is not a tragedy. It is diversity. It is another way of existing in the world. It is a brain working differently, not defectively. It is a unique perspective, not a problem to be fixed. I am Alex Rivera. I am autistic. I am independent. I am happy. And for the first time in my life, I am completely, authentically, proudly, myself. If this story touched you in any way, please share it. Like it. Comment with your own experiences. Every person who discovers themselves through stories like mine is a victory for our community. Every family who learns to accept instead of trying to fix is a victory for true love. Every heart that opens to understanding differences is a victory for humanity. Thank you for listening. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for accepting me. Until the next story. 窗体底端